So they're trying to raise $40 million from Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is on the call, listening to this person from YouTube, but it sounds kind of weird. They think, like the voice seems altered. Goldman emails you at YouTube and you're like, whoa, Goldman. Like, we never had this call. You impersonated an executive while trying to raise money. This is securities fraud to the umpteenth level. Huge names putting money into this thing, and it's a sham.
Nothing to do with Australia, nothing to do with Ozzy Osbourne. Ozy Media. So if you've been following or hearing about this whole thing with Ozy Media was going to be like this disruptive media company, take down like, I don't know, Wall Street Journal or whatever, boom, this new media company. They have Ozzy Fest, I think, which they got sued for by Sharon Osbourne. That I think they have Ozfest, for Ozzy Osbourne. These guys have Ozzy Fest, something that's close. She sued them. This is actually a great example of the games that this company plays. She sues them. They settle with her. They give her stock in the company. CEO of Ozy Media now tells people that Sharon Osbourne is an investor in the company. Is it technically true? Maybe. Is it really true? No, it's not true. That's just the tip of the iceberg, mind you. There's this New York Times article where they broke the story. Goldman Sachs, Ozy Media, and a $40 million conference call gone wrong. Ozy Media has now raised over $80 million. Some of that's PPP money. They got $3.75 million PPP money. That's nice. It's a lot of money. A lot of PPP money. Their last fundraise, this was in the fall of 2019. They had a $159 million post-money valuation. They raised $35 million. The chairman of the board and their lead investor is this guy named Mark Lasry, owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, billionaire, super well-to-do investor, big name, right? Steve Jobs' wife, widow, invested in this thing. You had the big German media conglomerate, Axel Springer, the founder of GSV Capital, big hedge fund, big VC fund out of Silicon Valley. This guy named Michael Moe. He led their seed round. Big names attached to this thing. So they're trying to raise $40 million from Goldman Sachs. They're supposed to do like a video call. Oh, and then they say, we have technical difficulties. Let's switch over to a voice call. So when you're raising this money with investors, as the investor, you do a lot of diligence. And so one of the points of diligence, Ozy was saying, here, go talk to YouTube. Here's this executive at YouTube. He can vouch for how amazing Ozy Media is, how much they love us, and how much we're growing, and all these wonderful things, which is why you should give us $40 million, Goldman Sachs, right? Goldman Sachs is on the call, listening to this person from YouTube, but it sounds kind of weird. They think, I don't know, it doesn't really sound like the voice seems altered. I don't know. It seems weird, right? Technical difficulties. Then the guy's voice doesn't sound, true. So they emailed the assistant of the person at Google, at YouTube. And then the assistant gets back to Goldman. And so if Goldman's emailing you saying, hey, we just spoke to you on the phone, kind of checking this out. And so if Goldman emails you at YouTube and you're like, whoa, Goldman, like, we never had this call. This guy at YouTube, he never had this call. Alex Piper, the head of unscripted programming for YouTube Originals. Look at this. Scam artists. He was running late and apologized to the Goldman Sachs team, saying he'd had trouble logging onto Zoom, and he suggested that the meeting be moved to a conference call. Once everyone had made the switch to an old-fashioned conference call, the guests told the bankers they'd been wanting to hear Ozy was a great success. So they reached out to YouTube. When YouTube learned that someone had apparently impersonated one of their executives, its security team started an investigation, and here we go. So turns out Samir Rao, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Ozy, was impersonating this YouTube executive. Mr. Rao worked at Goldman Sachs and went to Harvard. The CEO, Mr. Watson, also worked at Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, and went to Harvard. and went to Stanford Law School. They got these big to-do investors, strategic investors, big billionaire investors. And the co-founder is impersonating YouTube. Do you think that Mr. Watson, what's his first name? I'm like calling him Carlos. Do you think Carlos knew that his co-founder Samir was doing this? Absolutely. But Carlos will say no, he had no idea, and that Samir has mental health issues. Carlos attributed the incident to a mental health crisis. Samir is a valued colleague and a close friend. I'm proud that we stood by him while he struggled. And we're all glad to see him now thriving again, because he was not fired, by the way. Mr. Rao took off time from work and is now back at Ozy. Weird. Kind of weird. Mark Lazary, poor guy, hedge fund manager, chairman of the Ozy board, said in a statement, the board was made aware of the incident and we fully support the way it was handled. The incident was an unfortunate one-time event, and Carlos and his team showed the kind of compassion we would all want if any of us face a difficult situation in our own lives. Absolutely not. This guy should have been fired in 2 seconds. You can support him without him being an employee. This guy's a co-founder of the firm. What kind of example does that set to your employees about integrity and like any shred of value system in this company? How is Mark Lazary vouching for this and putting his name behind this? Now, everything boiled over. Not to mention, LionTree had money in this thing. They're a big to-do boutique investment bank in the media industry. This is a media-focused TMT investment bank. Huge names putting money into this thing. And it's a sham. It's an outright sham. Now, it gets crazier. So then this whole thing comes out, New York Times, like a week later, boom. NPR, Ozy shuts down as problems mount for the media company. An email statement from Friday from Ozy Media's board called it a company with many world-class journalists. It is with the heaviest of hearts that we must announce today that we are closing Ozy's doors. Okay, so it's closing. Or is it?
Joining us now exclusively, Carlos Watson, Ozy Media's CEO. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in. Let's start with the status of Ozy as we sit right now. Reports that the company shut down on Friday. Is that true? Is the company shut down, or are you still open for business?
You know, we're going to open for business, so we're making news today. This is our Lazarus moment, if you will. This is our Tylenol moment. Last week was traumatic. It was difficult. Heartbreaking in many ways. And at the end of the week, we did suspend operations with a plan to wind down. But as we spent time over the weekend, we talked to advertising partners. We talked to some of our readers, some of our viewers, our listeners, our investors. I think Ozy is part of this moment, and it's not going to be easy. But I think what we do with newsletters, what we do with TV shows, original TV shows, podcasts, and more, I think has a place.
So, like, the board, clearly the board is not on board with this, right? Because that statement was from the board saying, yeah, we're shutting this thing down. Now the CEO, I guarantee Carlos did not want to shut this thing down. The board wanted to shut it down. I guarantee you're going to see board members resigning if they haven't already, but maybe it's just not publicized. Carlos is going forward with this thing. The guy is an absolute madman.
Let's talk about this phone call. I mean, did you know that your partner, the co-founder of this company, was going to impersonate a YouTube executive on a call?
Yeah, no, and it's sad and it's difficult. It was wrong. Obviously, they figured it out very quickly.
But here's the thing: someone would wonder, perhaps. I mean, you're on a call with Goldman Sachs. You're trying to score $40 million in funding. Why were you not on the call, and how did you not have any knowledge of the call?
You know, part of the fundraising process, you end up talking to a lot of people, and I'm not on every call. And there are lots of these reference calls that happen. They, I think, probably ended up talking to 3, 4, maybe 5 of our references. They also talked to members of the team. They talked to some of our other investors. And so there are a fair number of things that are involved, and you're not a part of all of them.
Couple things in that. One, Carlos knows this guy interviewing him, right? So he's asking him a follow-up question, but I would have not let this guy off. I would have kept drilling him, right? Why did you not fire Samir? What kind of example does that show to your employees? What kind of values do you even say that you purport to have, which clearly you don't if you kept this guy on payroll? How in God's name did you not understand? This is not a one-off incident. This kind of stuff does not happen one time. This is something that you see. How are you blind to this, right? Like, there's no way that they're coordinating reference calls with Goldman Sachs. You don't think as a CEO, you're going to have so are they talking to YouTube? What are we doing with the reference call? Where's that at? Co-founder? Right? Like, there was never any reference call set up with YouTube. There's so many ways that this story breaks down. This guy's lying. Now, that's point one. Point two is the unjust application of the law in this country. FBI probing Ozy Media after co-founder allegedly impersonated YouTube executive. Okay. This does not go far enough. FBI probing. You impersonated an executive while trying to raise money. This is securities fraud to the umpteenth level. You should have the federal government shutting down the business. If this was a crypto company doing this, impersonating, let's say, an executive from Coinbase or something, I don't know, that company would be shut down. The executives would be hauled off in handcuffs. They'd be in jail in about 4 hours. They have violated so many laws. This isn't just a probe. This is my point on our government agencies are interpreting violations of the law and prioritizing them in an unequal fashion, right? Lady Justice, she's blind, right? She holds the scales. She's blindfolded. Lady Justice is no longer blindfolded in this country. We have an unequal application of the law. And clearly this company, Ozy Media, has some kind of aura around it with its investors, with, the people on the board, with, all the things around them that, if they want to keep operating, let's just investigate Samir. FBI is investigating Samir. What about the whole company? It's honestly complete malarkey. That's the word I'll use in an ode to our Australian brethren. This also goes to support the fact that you got to diligence these companies. And the New York Times article says, how do you know between someone hyping up the sales and being a good hype man like Elon at Tesla and just being straight fraudulent like Theranos? And the answer is good diligence. And you see this so often now in all these tech companies is how do you really know who's got it and who doesn't? Little plug for Applico. That's what we do. Unfortunately for LionTree, which is a media investment bank, how they did not see through this and really do the proper diligence. Maybe just, it was Mark Lazary, you had Axel in there, and you had, they kind of maybe like those guys were leading the round. Mark Lazary is a hedge fund, right? I mean, they're supposed to do diligence, right? What Goldman Sachs caught was good on Goldman Sachs for catching it, but I think that was just the tip of the iceberg. And that friendly interview that Carlos did, they asked him about basically buying junk traffic. And then, because the way Ozy Media and all these content publication sites make money is they charge advertisers, right? So you charge them for eyeballs coming in. So if you buy junk traffic coming in and you get eyeballs, but you pay a cent, a 1 cent CPM, but then you charge your advertisers 10 cents CPM, you just made 9 cents, right? Like you can play kind of these games of arbitrage, eyeball arbitrage. That's why companies like ComScore and these independent ratings agencies have a business, is to try and bring that. So when you look at the ComScore numbers versus Ozy's numbers, there's huge discrepancies, which they ask him about. But the problem is, in these interviews, they ask him one question and then he's got a scripted answer and then they just keep moving. You got to ask follow-up questions. You want to interview employees and really ask employees tough questions? It's about the follow-up questions. Don't give me one follow-up. I want 2. I want 3 follow-ups. How do you handle the unscripted questions, the pressing? Hey, well, what about this? Hey, what about that? That's what a real interview is, not these layup interviews by former friends and colleagues, and then getting this angel treatment from the authorities for a clear scam sham of a company defrauding investors. Sad to see all around. Hi, I'm Alex. Thanks for watching the show. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, but even better, make sure to follow us on Odyssey, follow us on Rumble, and text us 203-646-5159. Text the word Monopoly. You'll be subscribed. You'll get updates about when we're going live, our latest videos, and we'll send you even a little goodie bag. And in the event that we all get banned from big tech, we'll still be connected.